This is my very dynamic interview voice. I hope your viewers, listeners will find it entertaining.
That is perfect.
Can you
Yes.
just talk like that the entire time?
Adam, if industrial design were Futurama, you'd be the hedonism bot.
Welcome to Engineer versus Designer,
The podcast.
for engineers, designers, and corporate CEOs who can still throw down a freestyle rap as needed. My name is Adam, industrial designer of CADjunkie.com.
And my name is Josh, mechanical engineer of SolidSmack.com. Each week's show comes in 3 halves. This week we're looking at software entrepreneurship and a little company called Luxology. Start with the top product design stories from this week's news, courtesy of SolidSmack.com.
Followed by design process tips, tricks, and Q&A compliments of CADjunkie.com.
And in the third half,
I just beat my pants.
we'll be speaking with the one and only
Yep, I'm gonna have to change this.
founder and CEO of a little company called Luxology, the Modo Dojo master, Mr. Brad Peebler.
Yes, Brad, it is such a pleasure to have you on the show with us today. If Luxology were an 80s pop rap show, would you be Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch or Vanilla Ice MC Hammer as a double header?
I'm gonna have to go with we would be the rap love child of Eric B, Rakim, and Public Enemy.
Yes.
All right, Brad, good answer.
So perfect.
Stay put. We'll be hearing more from you as the show goes on. Josh Mings of SolidSmack.com. Speaking of horrifying crimes against taste and decency, melt the faces of ignorance with the ghetto blaster of knowledge. What have you got for us this week?
This week's SolidSmack update is brought to you by the Printastic family of Stratasys 3D printers. Dimension 3D printers are the ABS printing machines of your dreams, taking models direct from your CAD software. Check them out at stratasys.com. This week we're talking with none other than Mr. Brad Peebler of Luxology, but not quite yet. First, we have to give you a little update on that Shapeways necklace competition thingy.
What necklace competition thing was that? Thing, Josh?
Your pathetic puny designer brain has failed you again, little man. A bunch of people uploaded necklace designs to Shapeways with the tag EVD
Oh,
for
yeah.
a chance to get their necklace printed up to $200 for free.
All right. That necklace competition thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we have a winner.
Stein speaking.
Hey there, Stein. This is Adam O'Hearn and Josh Mings calling. How are you doing, sir?
Hey guys, I'm doing great.
Well, so, nice to meet you. What what do you do, Stein?
Yeah, what do I don't? I'm a sort of engineer, artist, designer type of dude.
We know one or two of those. Well, I mean, what software are you using to make your designs?
Currently, I've up to raw coding, so I use mostly C, C++, Perl scripting, stuff like this.
Wow. You're serious.
I started out with 3D Studio Max on university licenses way back, and I even dabbled with Pathway on in the Atari age.
Cool. So the Go with the Flow necklace, brilliant piece. I'm wondering how you even came up with the idea. What was the inspiration behind this, first of all?
It was mostly triggered by the contest remark, make the coolest necklace you can design, and that's really got me thinking. And I ended up with this idea for a spirograph drawing necklace. So you have this sort of script tool that can draw a necklace based on the curves and lines you normally get with a spirograph. So I made this script to do this and translated it into 3D. And the first sketches that came out of it reminded me of the typical struggle with the flow of life people used to have. And this transformed into this necklace.
Well, so how would you recommend if a listener hears this and they think, wow, this guy is using raw code to create generative models of designs? How would you recommend that person get off the ground if they were interested in trying to do something similar? Where would you start?
I usually immediately point towards the 123D apps from Autodesk. It's an amazing set of tools that would allow just about anybody to create something. And I even believe they have native interfaces towards 3D printing services. So, and that's even my mother can do it. So.
Great.
Well,
Great.
Josh, do you have any other questions?
No, it's what a pleasure to meet you and talk with you. We're going to be sending you some information from Shapeways to get your $200 of credit there. So stay tuned for that.
Seriously, great. Thanks, guys.
No problem at all, Stein. It's been such a pleasure to speak with you today. And if you were going to say anything else to the rest of the EVD listeners out there, is there anything you'd like to say?
Keep on making.
Fantastic. I love it.
Good advice. Great.
All right, bro. Thanks for talking to us.
Thanks a lot, guys.
See ya.
Thanks again. Bye. So, Adam O'Hearn of CADJunkie.com, is that a space mouse in your pocket? Or are you just excited about 3D? Man!
This week's CAD Junkie Q&A is brought to you by Stratasys 3D printers, taking your 3D data from virtual to physical with ease. Designers, engineers, educators, and others are churning out amazingly detailed, durable prints with Stratasys Dimension printers. Make sure to go check those out at stratasys.com.
Today we're chatting with Brad Peebler, founder and CEO of Luxology, makers of Modo, popular modeling, rendering, and animation software.
So, Brad, in the third half, we want to talk about your background, how Luxology came about, what it's like going to CEO parties and being the only one there with a sense of humor, etc. But first, I want some hot, juicy NC-17 rated details about Modo version 601, which should be coming out real soon if it hasn't already. Before we go any further, though, I should say that Luxology is not paying to be on the show with us today, and if you are hearing this and you work for a competitor, we'd love to hear from you. Just shoot us an email and we will talk about the details. First of all, Brad, in 17 words or less, what is Modo?
Whew, 17 words. That's worse than Twitter, by the way. I get to like 100.
All right, we'll give you
characters,
Twitter.
isn't it? And since I'm monosyllabic, I get a lot of words out of 140 characters. Modo it's a tool for artists. It's an artist tool for expression, essentially. It leverages futuristic technologies of the third dimension. So if you happen to want to explore your vision, whether it's direct modeling with polygons or subdivision surfaces or working with sculpting and exploring shape and form, 3D painting on your beautiful surface, and then slapping on some materials and getting a photorealistic render. Perhaps you want to move that item. You can do all that. It's really an unlimited artist tool. That was way more than 17 words.
Way more than 17 words.
Well, so, I mean, a lot of our listeners are CAD users, and so how would you differentiate Modo from a CAD system like, I don't know, SolidWorks or Pro Engineer or any of those others out there?
Yes, the intended output of Modo is not something that's manufacturable. It is to create your design intent, essentially. It's replacing clay, it's replacing pencils and pens, or maybe augmenting those things. Now, with developments that are not so far on the horizon, of course, there will be ways to get more machinable data out of Modo or Modo data into a system where you could massage it into something that's machinable.
Can't wait to hear more about that. We are going to talk about that in a minute, I think. So version 601 is coming out real soon. It's a really big deal. I'm super excited. What can you tell us about it, and why should we be excited about it in the product design world specifically?
There are so many big, giant chunks of juicy deliciousness in 601. It's hard to know where to start. But, just in terms of product design, we have a lot of people who want to explore the more organic side of the world, and so we're constantly working on ways to finesse a surface with sub-Ds, and so we've added some really cool new modeling functionality with soft selections and other methods for massaging your shape. We've improved the sculpting system, of course, and the painting engine has been completely revamped. We've also added an incredibly robust architecture for deformations, which means that you can do a sort of procedural or history-based almost change of shape and iterate through lots of different design ideas by rigging up what in some areas would be considered a character animation system can also be used to deform mechanical shapes and or organic machinable shapes, so you can very quickly explore lots of iterations. And isn't iteration what it's all about, after all?
Well, it certainly can be. I mean, but there's also, of course, this new CAD loader thing, right? What can you tell us about that?
The CAD loader, yes. So that will be a separate product. That's a plugin that will be available alongside of 601. And we have licensed Geometry Engine, the Parasolids communicator, and we will be loading Parasolids files native in the basic version, and in the advanced version, you'll also get Step and IGES. This is not your grandma's CAD loader. This is not just creating a giant ball of triangulated poly mess. You can actually hold the B-rep surface inside of Modo sort of natively, and then tessellate on demand. It also breaks up your CAD file in a very sort of friendly manner, where you can leverage some of Modo's internal systems for managing complexity. We use instances and replicators.
Now this is beautiful stuff. I have to say, I'm just going to jump in here and say, I've used the CAD loader in beta, and it's fantastic. I mean, when you bring stuff in, it's really interesting because it dynamically kind of chooses based on the complexity of the surface how dense to make the mesh, and then makes a really nice, clean, mostly quad mesh. And it's really impressive stuff, and it's rendered really nicely. But we've also talked quite a bit on the show about this acquisition of T-splines by Autodesk, and I was really bummed about that because I use T-splines to get my data from Modo back into CAD. But we've been seeing some pretty tantalizing stuff having to do with IntegrityWare and Luxology. Is there anything you can tell us about converting sub-Ds to NURBS possibly in Modo 601?
That is correct. It has always been, since the relationship with SOLIDWORKS started years ago, and we started going to SOLIDWORKS World and interacting with more SOLIDWORKS users. Of course, we were providing SOLIDWORKS with PhotoView 360, and that introduced SOLIDWORKS users to Luxology, and started looking at Modo and saying, hey, that sub-D thing is really cool. You guys can do organic shapes like nobody's business. Can we just get that back to SOLIDWORKS? And of course, their CAD companies were asking the same question, and it's always been a somewhat intractable problem. And so we've been looking for solutions for a long time. We talked to Matt and his crew over at T-splines. We talked to IntegrityWare, and we decided that doing a co-op project with IntegrityWare was the right path for us. And so we've been working with them for some time on some plugins that will be for sale for people who want it to add to their Modo. And basically we'll take your sub-D mesh and create a nice NURBS network and spit it out, and then you can load that straight up in your CAD program of choice.
So I just want to recap this and just say, this is, for me, as an industrial designer, this Modo 601 is, I'm not kidding, it's the most exciting release yet of Modo, because if only because it integrates so much better with any CAD system of your choice. It doesn't just load Rhino files. It doesn't just load SOLIDWORKS files. It loads any CAD file or any CAD system that can make a step file. And I'm not tied to T-splines on the other end. If I want to go back to CAD, I can use Modo itself to create the NURBS geometry and save it out to whatever CAD system I use. So this is really exciting stuff, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're finding a lot of, the downside to paper and clay is it's great for an artist to work on shape and form, but it's hard to get that clay into the CAD program. And people find the same benefits, of clay when they're working in sub-Ds, especially when you're able to use a tablet and sculpt shape and form and explore volumes. To be able to then push a button and have that spit out NURBS so that your designer can shoot something straight over to their engineer. It's a pretty exciting time.
Amazing stuff. We will be right back. And welcome back. Today, as you know, we are chatting with Brad Peebler, founder and CEO of Luxology, makers of Modo.
And we asked him on because not only do we love Modo as a product, but also because we've heard lots of myths and rumors surrounding his background and where he came from, and we wanted to get the real scoop on that.
Yep. So, Brad, where did you grow up, and how did you find your way into the software industry of all this?
I grew up in the tech hub of the hemisphere, which is Derby, Kansas. I'm sure everybody knows that.
Oh yeah, Derby.
All things technological come straight out of Derby. And then I grew up in Kansas. I went to the University of Kansas, and then I was a in the early days of computers, back just after punch cards, you kids these days. I was a big fan of the Amiga, and I was reading an Amiga World magazine, and on the back of it was an advertisement for this product called the Video Toaster, and they were sending out free VHS tapes as a marketing promotion, if that's any indication of how long ago this was. We didn't have internet. We had VHS, and we liked it. And we wore onions on our belts. That was the style at the time. And we called nickels bees. Anyway, I noticed that their phone number had my area code, so I called them, and I said, "Where are you?" And they were in, of all places, Topeka, Kansas, which was about 20 miles from where I was. So I drove straight over. I said, "Don't ship me the tape. I'm coming to get it." And
so you're like in the Silicon Valley of Kansas. It's fantastic.
It was in the Silicon Prairie. We called it the Silicon Prairie. I basically said, "I have to work here." And they said, "What can you do?" And I said, "Well, everything, anything." And somebody came out and said, "Can you make small wooden boxes?" I said, "I can. I can make small wooden boxes." I don't know. I never actually did make small wooden boxes, and I've always wondered what project she was working on that they needed to make small wooden boxes. But they asked me if I knew anything about the Video Toaster or the Amiga, and I lied and said I knew everything about it. And so they gave me a trial by fire 2-week opportunity to answer telephones and tech support. And I learned something very important.
What was that?
People do not read manuals.
Mm.
So I just sat there with the manual, and people would call, and they would ask a question, and I would say, "Can you hold for a moment?" And I would flip to that page in the manual, read it quickly, and give them the answer. And within a week, I also learned that in tech support, about 90% of the call load is the same 10 questions over and over and over again.
Right.
That was an interesting experience starting in that position. Now flash forward a few, say 20 years, and I always take that experience with me of working in tech support and answering calls and understanding that the people answering the phones and the people making the calls are in a tense position because they're struggling with problems with the product, and if you can solve those problems, you have happier customers and you have happier tech support people.
Well, and so you made your start at New Tech, at least as in my the history that I know. You were working at New Tech, working on Lightwave, is that right? And then you left, right? And there's kind of this mythology surrounding that whole thing. What can you tell us about that process? I mean, and why did you end up starting Luxology in the first place?
We had, I became very close friends with the original creators of Lightwave. That was Alan Hastings and Stuart Ferguson. They were not in Topeka. They lived out in Palo Alto in California, and they were like these mysterious wizards who lived far, far away, and periodically we would get a FedEx envelope with a floppy disk in it that would have the latest beta of Lightwave, and that was pretty much as much information as we would get, and I thought, this is kind of a crazy way to build a product. So I started communicating with them on the telephone, and we became very close friends. And we didn't have Skype either, barely had email. But we became very close friends, and I quickly, just over the years, sort of built up a team around them, and we ended up building an office, or starting an office in California. And just over time, we realized that we had, very specific vision of how we wanted to approach 3D, and it didn't seem, it seemed an intractable problem to do that inside an existing company. And so let's just say that we're very independent people with very specific ideas about how we wanted to do things, and the only way we were able to achieve that was to strike out on our own.
I think you're in the company of a lot of really successful people in that.
So far, so good.
Yeah. So what was the most challenging thing about starting this new company? It is a good thing to be a bit ignorant when you start a company.
Amen.
To be ignorant and highly optimistic, and probably the most difficult thing was just you have a lot of ideas and you have a lot of passion and just the amount of time it takes to get things done and to get from your first line of code to getting a product into the hands of your users. I mean, that's what we're all here for. We are so motivated by the works of our end users that early phase where we don't have users working with our code, that was tough. it was incredibly exciting because we were building something on our own, and there was nothing but possibilities at that point. But we were really yearning for getting some code into the hands of some users so we could see what artists could
Eventually,
do.
You want something other than a possibility at some point.
Yes, I can only make so many cubes before it's like, we need an artist to make something interesting to look
you
at.
didn't just start any old company, though. You started a company full well knowing that you were going into a mature market competing against big established companies. That takes some brass, I have to say. When you were getting started, what made you confident that you could compete with companies like NewTek and Autodesk and Maxon and all of the others? Why did you think Luxology would be able to succeed in that?
Well, first of all, I think when you say brass, you mean balls, and I agree.
Well said.
No, we had we had experience. We'd done it before. I was working. Honestly, largely, a lot of my confidence came from working with Alan Hastings and Stuart Ferguson. These guys are two of the smartest people I've ever met. Moreover, they're two of the most humble people. There's no ego from these guys. So you just get this sort of calm. When you're around people that know so much and are also so capable, it does give you a heightened sense of confidence. But we also had some other technological advantages in that it was the age of the internet was really taking off. And so there were new distribution methods that weren't possible before. You didn't have to have thousands of resellers all over the world to start a business. You could actually interface with users much more easily than you could. You didn't have to have a phone system when you started your company. You could actually use Skype and talk to people. And we actually also had this notion that we could support a large body of users by creating what now might be referred to as a social network. We were actually social networking before it was even a term. The first thing we built before we had a product into the hands of the people was a website, and it was called Luxology.net. And it was just a community site where people could go and talk about anything that was happening in 3D. And it didn't matter what product they were using. It didn't matter, if they had alliances with one company or another. It was just an idea that, hey, let's just get people talking about what we're all passionate about, and that's 3D. And we were allowing them to share images and share material files. And there was a forum, of course, component to it. They could submit news that would then get promoted. It was pretty cool. So we had, a community of tens of thousands of users before we even had a product to sell.
Wow, that's amazing.
That was key. It was key to our strategy because we knew that this idea that people from anywhere in the world could communicate with one another was a great way to build a community. And if you actually interface with those people and treat them with, respect, and actually share ideas, tell them what you're thinking about, get their feedback, you can iterate before you even implement. So that's been really key to our success from the very beginning.
Wow. So as you built the company, were there ever any moments when you were afraid that everything was going to fail? And how did you stay motivated through that?
Sorry, what was that word in the middle?
Yeah.
Fail?
Right.
Fail. Yeah, see, I am a delusional entrepreneur.
Right.
So failure is
possible.
I ripped out an entire page of a dictionary just to remove that word. No, there were challenges. We started the company in 2002, which makes us 10 years old. Thank you very much. But if you go back in the annals of history, you will remember that was just as the first internet boom, or rather bust, happened. The bubble popped. So it was a pretty significant recession. A lot of people would say that's not a great time to start a company. Actually, if you look back in business trends, you'll find that those companies that start in an economic downturn tend to be the most successful because they don't lavish their employees with 30 Aeron chairs and a fruit smoothie bar at every corner. You actually build your company more conservatively. So, but there were times, when things were tough. Like I said, when we didn't have product on the market, when we were slogging away. I was hosting developer conferences for our office in my living room. They were good times, but it was also scary. But I think just the promise of what was to come, kind of kept us motivated. And having that Luxology.net community, and once we started bringing product out, having thousands and thousands of artists sort of cheering us on, because everybody wanted something fresh. Everyone wanted something new. I mean, part of the reason we started the company is because the users were telling us to. They were saying, someone needs to start from ground up, taking advantage of, at the time, the big thing was multi-core processing and OpenGL and all these emerging technologies that people weren't really leveraging in a substantive way. And the only way to do that was to start from the ground. And so, we had a lot of cheerleaders.
Well, and okay, so this next question is based on pure speculation on my part, but I have no doubt at all that over the years, various major players have tried to acquire Luxology. It has to have happened. What has made you decide to keep Luxology independent?
Well, as I said, we are sort of fiercely independent in terms of our personality. It is a selling the company. You're letting go of control of your destiny, unless you can find some magical partnership that could happen. But right now, and for the foreseeable future, we are certainly very happy to be in control of our destiny. It has served us very well. One of the folks that I look to as sort of a beacon of the way to do things is Bob McNeil. I think he is, he's built a successful business. He's managed to stay independent. He has a loyal following, and they've done a lot of things right. And I think I think we need independent companies to keep all the other folks in check.
Amen.
Isn't that where all the exciting stuff comes from anyway?
Amen, brother.
Yeah, definitely. So what advice would you have for any of our listeners who would like to start a company but are afraid to compete with the big established companies out there?
I think, you have to be different. And it doesn't necessarily, a lot of people try to differentiate by technology, but you can also just differentiate by corporate culture. You can differentiate by the way you talk to your end users. You can differentiate on licensing. You got to find an angle. You got to find something. But most importantly, you have to be committed and passionate for what you're doing. That's one of the great things about being an entrepreneur is, work isn't really work. You're doing what you love to do. And if you stay true to that, you will be successful. If you stray too far from that path of doing what you love, it's hard for a small company to make it. And unless you're really serious and in love with what you're doing, it's even harder. But if you have a lot of passion and you're dedicated to it, well, it's hard not to win.
Well, Brad, having you on the show has been even better than that time Adam built a giant hamster ball to keep him dry in the rain. It's true. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, guys.
All right, and if you'd like to send a human-scale hamster ball to EVD HQ, please address it to Adam.
And if you'd like to send a human-scale hamster, please address that to Adam as well. Engineer versus Designer, appreciate your comments. If you hate the show and want to tell us so, head over to engineerversusdesigner.com and speak your mind.
And if you'd like to see us pelted with spit wads until we get really mad and cry a lot, be sure to like us, plus want us, follow us, or whatever, as social media has been correlated with pathetic situations and emotional instability.
Yep. The show is edited by Simon Martin. Our theme music is by Ross Hartman.
We'll see you next week. And remember, without designers, a computer mouse would have 36 buttons, a full QWERTY keyboard, and the ability to withstand a nuclear holocaust.
Yep. And without engineers, mice would be sleek, beautiful, button-free desk ornaments.
Xylophone.
Flugelhorn. Right on.